I was watching Kaiser Report, and I like this program. Usually, like, they come up with the phenomena that's going on, and almost nobody else notices it or tries to explain it. The one that I was listening to was talking about the Gilets jaunes and quintillion effect, which is like the French people are angry because the bankers or the banksters or the European Central Bank publishes all this money or buys the bonds of major companies or gives the money away to favorite friends or the bourgeoisie, and the rest of the population, all they get is just they are the working stiffs, and maybe their money depreciates in value. I don't know about that one either, but it's just a lot of sense of anger. Why are we being left behind from this false prosperity, from all this money that's slushing around, but it's not going to us? And there's a similar sentiment in the United States, and a lot of the people feel that they're left out or they don't have control over economic activity. And same with Brexit, the British, they feel left out, and they feel like they don't have control over their government and who makes the money, or being able to control your own economic destiny. That's the problem. But the Kaiser report, they kind of miss the mark. Is that they don't try to look at it in more general terms. Usually, when mathematicians they make a model, either economic or a model of a physical process, they try to look for a significant variable, something that affects this phenomena, and then use those variables to construct a general formula that will explain this phenomena. And if things change later on because you have a very nice formula, then the formula can be applied to this hypothetical situation, or it could also predict crises or problems that are there ahead. But in a lot of countries, there is a white minority. For example, in the United States, there is 35%. And Stacy talked about it, that a lot of white guys, they're killing themselves because they feel useless, or they're completely left out. And this phenomena is also related to Gilets jaunes and the same feeling of being left out or being useless, or that society is going on and they don't need you anymore. They mention this, but this is not a bad development, because in these societies, a certain segment of population was the favorite one, and the government or the banks or the companies, they favor them, they hire them, they distribute the wealth to them, and they had all these programs. And the rest of the population, we were just coming along for the ride. We were the useless ones, and they hired us or they pampered us if we had been especially good, or well, I'm Iranian and I've always gotten my ass kicked no matter what economic situation was going on, and I got the greatest amount of flack, no matter who was in charge. So I kind of know that this new development is not as bad as people think. I think that there is a lot of technological changes that have induced changes in modes of production and modes of communication that make this segment of population that were formerly gatekeepers, they were the influential people. I just want to show this as an example. Like about a month ago, I was talking to my sister, and she showed me a program that I downloaded onto my Android, and everybody's got these Android cell phones over there. It was called IMO, and the other one is WhatsApp. So we were able to not only make phone calls but also see each other. Well, for many years I've been wanting to go and visit and even send money, but it was very difficult because the U.S. government continuously keep relations very bad, and also they had instituted very stringent immigration. I was worried that if I left, would I be able to come back? My own immigration was, they said, okay, you are a national, but you really stink, and we don't give a shit if you have a copy of your green card or not. And well, you're gonna have that nice interview when you come back. So there was a big gatekeeper, which is the government, that I was very worried on this side. And on the other side, I'd been there for so long that I left before revolution. I don't know what happened, what kind of laws they have changed. We'll probably have a big interview over there too, and whether I could come back or that would be another question. And besides all of this, I usually when I went to Turkey, I had to buy airline tickets and use a third country. So if I needed to go back, I would have to save money for the airline for round trip, which is not cheap, and then also make a lot of preparation, put my car in storage, and pay the rent up ahead. I didn't know if I would be able to come back and keep my stuff, so there was a lot of planning, and on each step of this planning to go and come back, there were all these gatekeepers, all these the government here, the government over there, the airlines, and also internationally, it just wasn't safe because there was all these wars going on, and both Iran and the United States were participants. So these sets of people, they were the gatekeepers. They were playing a game. It sometimes helped their oil prices or sell weapons to each other or from other people. It kind of like had made my personal life very dysfunctional. Also this went into like my relations with women. There was all this uneasiness. For example, a lot of white women that I liked, wanted to date, there was just this sense that, hey, the girl would say, hey, if I went with him and I got pregnant, or how would it be if another war was started? And there was already a lot of propaganda against the Iranians and Muslims, and all this uncertainty and all these worries. all these gatekeepers, they made my personal life very dysfunctional and prevent me from living or doing the things that I wanted. Well, I'm not even mentioning all the problems and flack I get at work, and I had to constantly go look for other work. But what happened technologically is because I was able to visit or see family without all these gatekeepers and without putting myself on the line, without all this, it was a huge savings in cost, in the monies that I saved, that I didn't have to deal with all these issues, and then I could give this money to the family instead of blowing it away to satisfy the gatekeepers. This is what happened. It was like somebody was selling or giving a product or service in a faraway place that didn't really like the gatekeepers here, and I was looking for that product or service or that visit, and I was able to get it extremely cheaply with very little effort. Well, this is just like a human contact, but this has gone on with all kinds of stuff. Like, for example, I bought specialty socks that have copper in them from I don't know, it was China or something, and I prepaid for it. It was actually very cheap from some Chinese companies. I waited for it. It came like 2-3 weeks later. They were great. So this is the story of the death of the gatekeepers, or the collapse of the price or cost to get things without all these companies and intermediaries. So this is repeated in many other forms with many products and many things that are produced, even artistic or scientific stuff. Right now, I can get content that would be almost impossible for me to get. I would have to go to specialty stores. Like I'm listening to a favorite Turkish singer, Ersoy. I've seen now like many of her performances. This would probably be very hard to get 10-20 years. So what I'm saying is that if the populations or people in the world are becoming unneedy of gatekeepers, they're becoming unneedy of French boutique owners, they are becoming unneedy to have to buy airline tickets to go France, they're becoming unneedy to appease the U.S. immigration laws, they're becoming unneedy to pay taxes here. They are able, if for example I wanted to buy property in faraway places, they would not only be cheaper, but I would also be able to do it through with very few intermediaries and control it. So this story is widespread, and what it does is that these segments of population that were formerly gatekeepers, they experience this loss that has happened because of decentralization, extensive communications, the collapse in the price of information or files. Files, by the word files, I mean that almost any kind of file is such a general term. A file could be a MRI for a 3D printing machine. So right now I could go on the internet and have especially search engines, find me a certain kind of file that will print me a handgun. Okay, but the handgun really doesn't exist right now in my hand, but the file is there, is for free most of the time. So what I could do is download the file. I have a sufficiently advanced 3D printer and print that thing. So my cost to acquire this thing, the technology that previously, like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would have to get a license. I would have to, register it. I would have to inform the gatekeepers in the community. Hey, I have a handgun and I'm a really nice guy. This is for self-protection. But as the technology progressed, it invaded spaces, either economic spheres or artistic or scientific or family ties spaces, and made these gatekeepers very much redundant. I had a video, it was called Mass Extinction of Gatekeepers. So, and then also because the belligerent governments like United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, they have been creating wars, and they have been creating or mongering fear, and then as these technological developments happen, and there is all these extensive communications between people, then hey, somebody here figure out, hey, this stuff these guys are saying on the CNN, or this is complete bullshit. There is no such fears. Those people are just like me. In fact, they are family, and there aren't really all these stuff that could go wrong if I suddenly showed up in the middle of Tehran tomorrow. So because there is a collapse not only in cultural perception but also in the map that's in the people's head of doing business or acquiring things, it has made a lot of these people very useless, and they sense it. They are becoming angry, and if the stock market or the economy in these places like France or United States, if it collapses some more, then the portion of the population that will turn violent will be these white male or to some extent white female. Well, I don't think it will affect the females as much because of the way women are constructed. They're less violent. They're more interested in a long-term family environment that's kind of secure, stuff like that. But that's not the true with the other portion of the population. Well, I was watching a movie about if there was an EMP or there was a nuke went off. It was showing the movie. They knew the artists. They have a good idea. It showed that all these people were shooting each other with handguns, and well, who would be doing that would be certain parts of U.S. government and certain parts of U.S. Population trying to disarm each other or to assert control. So this trend of decentralization it's just beginning. And also another thing that is very interesting is that because in the past the gatekeepers, the retail shops, the institutions, big institutions, they were all concentrated in certain localities, like in the Paris or Bordeaux or in Hollywood, and then the technological change allows complete decentralization. You don't need these locations, but the locations didn't go away. There's companies still that make movies and they're in Hollywood, or there are companies that trade in stocks and they're on Wall Street. Then there is a period of collapse, and people figure out, hey, these guys, they don't mean anything, they don't produce anything, they cannot hurt me, I can forget about them. It's the same concept of the video I had, death by irrelevance, which means like, okay, I think in the Kaiser report they kind of know that this is going on, they sense it, but they kind of have wrong theories about why this is happening. I think it's one of the effects of decentralization. Well, the reason that Detroit and Toledo went bankrupt and the houses there are selling for $1,000 each, or at least in Detroit, is because the companies that were major manufacturers, major producers, they decentralized all their productions. They got rid of the workers. They didn't need them, and all the production was shifted to China, Japan, and they just bought the stuff back and did some assembly and sold the cars. So in these cities, the crime rate skyrocketed. Okay, then another concept, which is the reverse of this, is kind of like a Christian philosophy or Sufi theme, is that when you give love and you pay attention to someone or a certain group of population, they kind of turn around and their lives change because you care. Even though you didn't give them anything, you just paid attention to them. You know, like thought that they were important. In your thoughts only, this has an effect. Consciousness has an effect. Just like consciousness has an effect in quantum physics, just this act itself changes stuff around. And that's how far I want to go with these ideas. Some of them are very strange, but I always try to find a model to explain these things around. Thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave comments.